Welcome back to another trip down memory lane as we go through another complete set presentation. I am about a month delayed on this presentation, but this is actually going to wrap up the decade and leaves me just a few more sets that I have in my collection that I haven't otherwise already shown on the channel. So we might be wrapping this series up fairly soon. But until then, I'm going to take you to a pretty significant season from my childhood. This was probably at the peak of my collecting. It also was a time where Topps, who obviously survived them all, was challenged yet again with an introduction of the Upper Deck set. This is none other than 1989. So let's kind of jump into the year, the set, and the players themselves. Sorry, like the 1989 set, at least for Topps, probably the big innovation they did is they added in the draft picks from the previous year into the base set itself. In addition, they had like the Rookie Stars, which was Future Stars, which was a series they had started a few years earlier, so they continued on with that. There's Turn Back the Clocks in here, All-Star cards, some of the same things they've been doing throughout the decade, including starting with the Record Breaker cards. And as always, I'll point out some of the stars and Hall of Famers as we go through this, and I'll talk about things that happened during the 89 season. But I think one of the probably the biggest glowing omissions from the set is that they didn't feature King Griffey Jr., whereas a couple of the other sets did have that in their base set, so they kind of got a head start on the biggest name in the game, which debuted in April and was all the rage of baseball at this time, especially playing with his father at the same time in the outfield in Seattle. But other than that, they weren't the only company that missed out on that opportunity, but also the introduction of Upper Deck later on that spring really kind of put Topps by the wayside in many ways, because it wasn't really the coveted set when you had a lot of options of going after Donruss and Fleer to also be able to get the King Griffey Jr. rookie, but also with the Fleer product, you had that big year with Billy Ripken, and with the Upper Deck product, you had the premium cards that came out. Also, in addition, there was like some errors in there as well. So it just was like not a great time for the Topps baseball product, and it really required them to make some changes as they went into 1990 and then later on in 91 with the introduction of their own premium product, the Stadium Club product. But here we go. We'll kind of go through the 89 season, as I mentioned, starting off with the highlights from 88, where we have cards of Wade Boggs, Gary Carter, Andre Dawson, all of which are in the Hall of Fame, but we also see like Orel Hershiser, who was a pretty big name at this time as well as Jorge Bell here with Toronto, still playing outdoors in Toronto at Exhibition Stadium. Exhibition Stadium, it was its final year of Exhibition Stadium. They didn't even play in it the entire year. It set a close-up shop on the 28th of May, and then they returned to the next homestand in Skydome in 6-6, which is where they still play today. You know, now it's called by a different name, but that's where it opened up in Toronto at this time. All right, so let's jump around here. It's been a little while since I opened up this binder, so some of these pages may kind of stick. They're kind of the older sheets in here, which were very durable, but they had a tendency to stick to one another. Not the cards, fortunately, with back-to-back Hall of Famers here of Dawson and Suter. I think that might be the last year you see Suter in a set, but I'm not entirely sure. He might be in the 90 set. All right, moving on. One of the features of these cards I've always kind of enjoyed was the lettering. They choose to do cursive with the names, and they had print with the name below it. I thought it was kind of a very clean looking design personally, and I love some of these league leader cards that were kind of more like action shot photos. This one's taken of the White Sox at Comiskey Park, and this obviously brings back a lot of memories to me, seeing those green seats with the railing that they painted several times during the year to kind of make it look really bright and yellow. It kind of really, you had a nice contrast with the green seats at that stadium at that time. And obviously in 89, they were starting to wrap things up. The construction had already started during that season on the new Comiskey Park, which is where they play today. We got Dwight Gooden. They did start like giving some of the nicknames on the cards of some of the bigger players. So you see Doc Gooden. Later on, you'll see Tim Raines referred to as Rock Raines. Terry Francona. Still an active player at this point. Steve Stack still at the Dodgers at this point. He's one of the better second basemen of that era. There's Jorge Bell again, next to the rookie card of Craig Biggio. Ruben Sierra was your AL RBI leader that season. Julio Franco. Mark Davis was actually, I believe it was our Cy Young Award winner that year, if I'm not mistaken. Looking through there, yep, it was Mark Davis. Won it along with Brett Saberhagen with the American League. You hear them sticking right there. Mark McGuire. There's Tim Raines on the Expos leader card. These two are stuck together. Vince Coleman, your stolen base leader, along with Ricky Henderson in the American League. Mike Schmidt, who actually retired during the course of this year. On the 29th of May, he held a press conference and announced his retirement effective immediately. So this is the last playing day card you'll see from Topps for Mike Schmidt. They're probably the greatest third baseman in history. He was wrapping things up during the season. We got De Leon, who's the strikeout leader in the National League at that time. I think, and also Nolan Ryan was the strikeout leader in the American League at that point. You'll see one more card of him with the Astros, but during that season, he actually pitched with Texas Rangers. Paul Molitor in there at Fenway Park. Eric Davis up there on the league leader card, the team leader. Frank Villa, two-time Cy Young Award winner, I believe. I know he at least won one. Very good pitcher of this era. Don Zimmer. They managed the Cubs to a playoff appearance in 1989. They lost in 5 games to the San Francisco Giants, who went on to face the Athletics, who actually, I believe, swept, if I'm not mistaken, and won 4 games to 1 over the Toronto Blue Jays, who won the AL East. And so it set up the Bay Area World Series, and it was the only time the two teams from the Bay played each other during the World Series. And it was an 89 series, not marked by what happened in the World Series, but what happened during the World Series. We got Sean Dunston, good player there for the Cubs. Dave Stewart, part of that World Series winning team. The A's swept the series, so it ended up being quite uneventful from a entertainment standpoint, I suppose. But there was an earthquake at that point during the World Series, which stopped it right before they started Game 3. So if you were alive during that era, you remember it very well because they had a lot of pictures of what had happened, and they were able to get a lot of that coverage from the additional helicopters there to be able to capture things from the World Series, and also the Goodyear blimp was up in the air when those things happened, so they captured a lot of the damage that they saw. It was a really horrible time. At that time, the Bay Area Bridge had partial collapse, which trapped people beneath it, and in fact killed several people, but there was a huge rescue effort that was happening at that time. It was quite a thing to watch when you're all of 12 years old, which I was at this time when I was watching the World Series. And the coverage just abruptly stopped, and it took a little while for the cameras to come back on in that area and for the news outlets to get the feed to be able to share that with the public. I got Fernando Valenzuela. Tom Glavine, his second-year card. We got Greg Olson, who was your Rookie of the Year that year, along with Jerome Walton from the Cubs at that point. Scott, I believe, was your wins leader that year, along with Brett Saberhagen. Kevin Mitchell, who was your NL MVP that year. Your AL MVP during that year was Robin Yount, which won his second one that year. And your managers of the year were Don Zimmer, who we saw earlier, and Frank Robinson, actually, with the Baltimore Orioles. My guy Ozzie G in here, Sparky Anderson. George Brett. I always kind of enjoyed that card of George Brett. Virgil Alomar, his second-year card. We got Dwight Evans there. Dale Murphy, who's up for the Hall of Fame right now with they don't call it the Veterans Committee anymore. I forgot what the committee it is, but essentially it's former players that are in the Hall of Fame and coaches and stuff. They're going to be determining if a group of 6 players are going to be inducted. Also features like Bonds and Roger Clemens as well. We got Gaetti, pretty good player at that time. Jay Buhner, decent hitter during his era. Tony La Russa. Ozzie Smith. The card everybody coveted at this time, Craig Jeffries, who turned out to be a decent player, but definitely didn't live up to the hype. The prospect hunting became a huge thing during this era too, thinking you're going to get the next big rookie card years down the road. You know, the production was sky high. And we got Greg Maddux. Good old John Kruk, very entertaining ball player. Jim Rice, still an active player at this point. Cal Ripken. Tommy Lasorda, up there. Dave Winfield. It's a simple design, and I really do enjoy it. Kind of looking back at it at this point. It's been a while since I opened up these cards. The set to be able to look at. Not the Chris Carpenter that later would star with the Cardinals, just a coincidence, the same name. That Carpenter would debut later in the decade, but with Toronto first. John Franco, still pitching at that point. Ron Gant, pretty good player during his era. Darryl Strawberry. I like this Mario Diaz card because it's taken at Comiskey Park. Rafael Palmeiro. Walt Weiss, newly named manager of the Atlanta Braves. Got Lou Whitaker. And they're still sticking. Got Kirk Gibson with the Dodgers right there. Gary Sheffield was one of the two big rookies in this set, the other one being Randy Johnson. We'll see him a little bit later. You can get them pretty inexpensive because of the production at this time. We've got Ryan Sandberg down here in the corner. Dennis Eckersley up here. John Smoltz. But that's actually his rookie card, if I'm not mistaken. No, he's got a card in 88 Donruss, their update series, or 88 Fleer update series. It's considered his rookie, but this is his first Topps card. All right, here we go on to the All-Stars. So we have Ricky Henderson up here. Don't want to miss him. The All-Stars, here we go. Got Ryan Sandberg, Ozzie Smith, Darryl Strawberry, Bob Bonilla, Dawson. Van Slyke was a great center fielder at this era. Gary Carter, Hershiser, who we saw earlier. Danny Jackson with like his one good season. Kirk Gibson on there. Here we got Mattingly also up for that Veterans Committee vote coming up next month. Wade Boggs, Trammell, Canseco. Greenwell, who just recently passed away earlier this month. And actually may have been at the end of last month. Kirby Puckett. Bob Boone, at the end of his career, made an all-star appearance there. The Rocket, Roger Clemens, also on that ballot. And we got Dave Winfield along with Frank Viola. We got the Goose Gossage next to Fred Lynn with the Detroit Tigers, which always looks funny to me. That's also his cards with the Orioles look a little off to me. Joe Carter, we got in there. Future home runs, World Series hero. Bobby Bo there. Roger Clemens. Little Mark Grace with the Rookie Cup on there. Most hits during this decade in the National League. Dave Parker down here, now Hall of Fame ball player. Chris Sabo was your previous Rookie of the Year. Canseco again. Pete Rose. Let's stop here for a minute. So, let's go through some events that happened. This was kind of a big one. This is the last Topps card you'll see of Pete Rose because he was banned during the course of this season. The investigation wrapped up on the 24th of August by the commissioner's office. And unfortunately, the person that banned him died just 8 days later. Barchi Imani died during the season while in office unexpectedly on the 1st of September. Other things that were kind of a note, Tom Browning of the Reds pitched a perfect game during the season. Nolan Ryan on the 22nd of August struck out his 5,000th batter. So that was kind of note while he was with the Rangers. And the other thing that was kind of note too is there were 2 pretty big movies that were released that were baseball movies during the season. They were Field of Dreams and Major League, many movies that are still popular to this day. We got Barry Larkin. Nolan Ryan there, his final card with the Astros. It's a really cool image of him and his follow through there. Bo Jackson. Earl Hershiser one more time. Burt Bryleven, Hall of Fame pitcher. Got Boomer Dave Wells there. Got Hall of Famer Tony Gwynn. Got Jim Abbott. Actually has a card in the 88 traded series. A lot of people are after him at this point too. Harold Baines. Can't remember too many people going after Harold Baines cards at this point, but he's now a Hall of Famer, so people are trying to get his cards now. Wade Boggs. Boy, it's stuck again. Good old Paul O'Neill with the Reds at that point before he joined the Yankees. Barry Bonds. Jack Morris. Sandy Alomar, his father just passed away recently. Randy Johnson, as mentioned, the rookie card in here. Kirby Puckett, who was actually your AL batting leader that year, and your NL batting leader was Tony Gwynn. Some of the other things I just want to touch base on. I think I hit a lot of the other awards that happened, or the leaders that happened during the season. I think I got all the awards, but I did want to mention that the Hall of Fame class was pretty solid this year. In addition to Red Shandis and Al Ballack, you had Johnny Bench and Carly Yastrzemski, who were both voted in during their first year of eligibility. Got Whitey Herzog down there, Hall of Fame manager. We have our turn back the clock cards. They're still doing these at this point. Will Clark up there. We have Dwight Gooden, Lou Brock, Henry Aaron, good old Gil Hodges, Tony Oliva. A lot of Hall of Famers featured there. Gary Carter, Dave Johnson, who passed away not too long ago. Listen to that stick and sound. We got Carlton Fisk, Don Mattingly, also on that ballot coming up. Let's see if he finally gets in. Scott Gereltz actually was your ERA leader that year, along with Brett Saberhagen. Jamie Moyer on there, pretty good pitcher in his era there. We're getting near the end. Fred McGriff. He was your home run leader that year, along with Keith Mitchell. Lee Smith with the Red Sox. Dante Bichette. His son had a nice World Series. We've got Robin Ventura with his college team, draft pick. Alan Trammell. There's Frank Robinson, as I mentioned earlier, winning the Manager of the Year award. And here we are to the very last page. or probably the biggest player of note would be the league leader card, probably of Bo Jackson. So that's it, that's 89. Looks like the card's got a little off center there. Sorry if anyone got cut off. Good memories for me. These were available in wax packs, solo packs, rack packs, vending, complete sets, and you can still get these relatively inexpensive in those formats too if you ever just want to do a rip. You're not going to find anything too exciting in there, any like special airs or anything like that. Topps didn't have any of that in this set in particular, and the production quality was so high that nothing you're going to find is going to be worth too much value. Yes, if you get a 10 on there, if you got it graded, you might do a little bit better, but I think that's a crapshoot, man. There's so many of these cards that could be submitted that I think 10s are probably going to be a little hard to come by, but if you do get one, there's probably several of them because there's so many cards that have been produced. But that's it. That's 89. Not sure when I'll do the next one. I'll try and do one in December. And I'll do one of the few remaining from the early 2000s. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back soon.